weather going on around the country tonight.
Yeah, that is true, but when we do have some other severe weather that could be in our forecast come this summer. We're talking about we don't really want to talk about hurricanes.
Right, the hurricane forecasts are starting to kind of come out. It looks like it's going to be another very intense year.
Yes, that is. They're forecasting more intense storms than we saw last year, but not as many storms as we saw in 2005, so that's always good to hear.
That is a very good thing. It's just a thing to worry about with this storms will be just the intensity of it and the location of where they hit.
Yeah, the more intense a storm is, the more damage it does, just so you know, the stronger, and also stronger the winds are, which create the greater amount of damage.
Very true, and depending where these storms can come on shore, I mean, we could be seeing cases very much like 2005 with the oil shortages and the prices going up. I mean, it could just be another bad year for energy.
Yeah, that would be really bad, especially some of the energy bills are getting high and the gas prices are also just now starting to rise. So in 2005, they were at $3.06 a gallon. I imagine what they're going to be this year if we see more hurricanes. But for more on your local weather, let's go.
Very much, Katie. And I know some of these dry and mild conditions we're seeing down here. It's hard to believe Montana, that's been going to be covered in snow, throughout parts of today. And it's hard to believe that just yesterday they were dealing with a lot of tumbleweed.
Yeah, tumbleweed is basically the little round plant from dead crops that end up in the farms, and
at least that's what we think of when we think of tumbleweed.
Yeah, I think of when I think of tumbleweeds, I think of the movie when I was a kid. I watched Five Goes West.
Yeah.
And you see the little rolling, and keep on rolling. With those
Very true. That's what I
tumbleweeds.
think of at least.
Yeah,
but they've actually in Montana they came up with an interesting way to handle that. They've been using snow plows to plow their way out from the tumbleweed.
Yeah, but in one case, the tumbleweed was so high that it actually covered a person's front door all the way up with tumbleweed, covered their mailboxes, even their two sheds. So
that's just hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's just hard to believe. But we'll go ahead and send it back out to the wall with...
For my taste.
Me too. I kind of missed the cooler temperatures we saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but we do have an update to some stormy weather that Matt had mentioned earlier. In fact, we do have, as of right now, a new tornado warning that was issued in Silverton, Texas at 6:32. So if you plan on traveling to that area, be aware of that. This is moving northeast at 25 miles per hour in that area. So if you have any family in that area, please let them know that there is a storm headed their way, serious one of that, tornadoes. But we also have some other very wild weather out west. Some strong winds out in California. Right now has blown down several power lines. Several people are without power. 185,000 were without power thanks to some very strong winds throughout Southern California.
Well, I mean, that's almost as bad as like when hurricanes move through and all the power gets knocked out. I mean, that's just got to be miserable right now.
Yeah, exactly. But you also had something to say about the Colorado blizzard warnings?
Also, yeah, there's been seeing a lot of snow in Colorado, so especially if you're traveling along I-90 tonight, you're going to definitely want to take some caution.
Yeah, but do we have any really nasty weather happening out in... I thank you very much, Kevin, and apparently we're having some technical difficulties there, but we'll take care of those for you. But we do have an interesting story out west right now.
We do. They're actually up in Washington. They're looking, I guess the Navy is looking to protect a base of theirs out there.
Yes.
And they're actually thinking about using dolphins and sea lions to do this.
Yeah, and unfortunately animal activists have... kind of looked at this as a negative thing. They really want us to use the technology that apparently that the government possesses to provide better protection for this Navy base.
I actually had no idea that they could do this, like with the dolphins and the sea lions. Like if they pick up something in the water, they'll be sent back out there with the light, and they'll run into the object that's out there, drop the light, so we can actually see the location of the intruder. And I just find that so fascinating. The dolphins can do that.
Yeah. Well, dolphins have a great interaction with many people. If you watch any of those marine shows and things like that, like. They interact well with lots of people and get along with lots of people, especially at SeaWorld. If you ever
I know. I've always wanted to go to SeaWorld. I've never been, and I've lived in Florida all my life.
Yes, I've been there once, and if you ever talk about, like we were talking about orcas yesterday,
that's right.
Kristen was, and got orcas like Shamu there. If you ever go there, you do have the Shamu does tend to splash up a lot of water in here. I've gotten literally soaked. Like you had to be like 28 rows up.
Wow.
Even if you're 28 rows up, you can get totally soaked from those orcas.
That's just awesome. I would love to go to SeaWorld and watch the people just interact with these different kinds of animals. I mean, especially if they're being trained to do this kind of like security for us. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, but like we said, sea lions are also protecting the base possibly. And one thing that they can also do is they can get pretty violent on humans. So I would really not want to be an intruder on a Navy base.
Me either, but we'll go ahead and send it out to the wall for our last look at the
Thank you very much, Katie. And as we were talking about earlier, we were talking about all the pollen that's in the area, and so we decided here at the desk to give you a pollen forecast.
I know, just so you kind of can expect what's going to come up over the next couple of days here, so you can get ready for that.
Yeah, but the pollen forecast doesn't look very good for tomorrow. In fact, we're going to be seeing some of the highest levels of pollen tomorrow with all the heat and all the sun and not very much in the way of clouds. The pollen's just going to be spreading out all over the place.
Right, and I mean, on Friday, we're going to have a light wind kind of coming, but I mean, still, those pollen counts are going to be high.
Yeah, exactly. For Thursday, the pollen count is actually high, what we said, for the next 3 days. Pollen count is at 11.2. It is measured on a scale from 0 to 12. For Friday, it's at 10.4, so it does go down a little bit. As we said, some extra winds are actually going to come in on Friday and some extra clouds, so it'll blow the pollen out a little bit.
Right, but unfortunately, the high pressure is still going to be parked right on top of us, so this pollen is just going to keep on coming.
Right, and on Saturday, 10.5 is the expected scale for that. So, but we do really need some rain to wash away the pollen, and since we don't expect any rain for at least until the earliest Monday would be our best chance of rain, and that's a very slight chance at that. Would be the best chance to wash off most of this pollen, but it probably won't be enough.
It won't. I mean, we need a lot of rain to get rid of this. We're already in a very dry period right now here in Tallahassee already this year, so the little rain that we could get isn't really going to make that much of a difference, unfortunately.
Right, we are in a severe drought. I think last time I checked was 6.8. It's probably over 7 inches by now.
That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's very early in the season to be having a drought.
It is. I remember this time last year was much more rainy as springtime approached, and it's just so dry right now.
Yeah, and that's because we're beginning to transition from an El Nino year to a La Nina year.
That's right.
Yeah, and so La Nina tends to lead to drier conditions during our spring and summer, and more intense hurricanes, as we were also saying earlier in the year. And just so you know, the predominant pollens for our pollen forecast are oak, ash, and cedar juniper. So if you are allergic to any of those, please try to stay indoors as much as you can because we are under a high risk for pollen.
Right, and if you do have to go outdoors, you're going to want to wait until the afternoon, as that's what health professionals are saying.
Okay, but that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for joining us.
I'm student meteorologist Julie Fusen.
And I'm student meteorologist Shane Bossman. Have a good night.